हेलो। क्या आप मुझे देख सकते हैं? मेरी आवाज़ सुन सकते हैं? कैन यू लिसन मी? हैज़ द स्ट्रीम स्टार्टेड? आई थिंक इट हैज़. I clicked it, but I cannot see myself. Okay. It is happening. Come on. Yes, I'm on. Hello everyone. I hope that you all are having a great time, and I welcome you all on this great channel of Unacademy, ISC and ICSE boards. So I am your biology educator, and my name is Sourav Verma. I will be teaching you biology for ISC board for class 11th and 12th. All right. Hello, Yadav boy Mayank. Hello. So how are you? I'm very cold at the moment. I'm freezing, and unfortunately, I cannot use blanket. Whatever. So I was saying that we have started this great segment of ISC boards where you will learn all the basic subjects in a very simplified, organized, and well prepared manner. And we have great teachers. Very cold. You are very cold. Yes, everybody is very cold. Stay inside, right? You don't want that Omicron inside you. Or talking about Omicron, we are going to talk about some organisms that can enter your body and can mess you up, right? So we are going to talk about the common diseases in human body. Although we had started the discussion yesterday and we talked about some bacterial and viral diseases, to name a few, we talked about typhoid. This color doesn't suit. Let's use white. Yes. So we talked about typhoid. Typhoid is also known as enteric fever. And what is the name of typhoid in Hindi? Although we don't use it, but can you tell me the name of typhoid in Hindi? Let's see who can tell me. Do you know, Mayank, that what is the name of typhoid in Hindi? I don't think most of the people don't. Let me tell you. It is, and I also forgot the name of typhoid in Hindi. Come on. Moti jara. Oh, moti jara. We call it moti jara. So yes, nobody uses it at the moment. Everybody uses the word typhoid. We also talked about pneumonia, something related to the lungs, and they mess you up. Like your voice will become hoarse, so basically it becomes crackling, right? And you won't feel very well. You will experience headaches and colds and shivering, all that thing. So all these, basically these two diseases are caused by bacteria. After that, we talked about common cold. Why do we call it common cold? Because it is very common. Everybody actually suffers from it, and it is caused by viruses, basically rhinoviruses. So yeah, these were the diseases we talked about yesterday. We discussed what is health, what are diseases, and got the basic idea. All right, so now it's time to move on and discuss the new features. All right, so yeah, let us see. Yeah, this is me when I decide to take a nice picture. And this is my name. I'm Sourav Verma. I will be your biology educator, right? And at the moment I'm pursuing MBBS. So yes, I have taught a lot of students and I have experience. You can rely on me. Let's move on. And today's topic of discussion is common diseases, right? Part 2, lecture 2. And this is a very important part of the chapter of biology. So basically of unit. The unit's name is Biology in Human Welfare. Let me give you a map of the syllabus. So we have a unit called Biology in Human Welfare. So how can we use the concepts of biology for our own good? And in that we have a chapter known as Human Health and Disease. Human Health and Disease. And yes, we have talked about health, and now we are talking about common diseases. All right, so let us start with the discussion. Before the discussion, let me quickly give you an idea of the content that we have on the Unacademy app, which is free, right? So the special classes, they are special because they provide you quality and they do not charge you anything. You can see the special classes of ISC board of all the subjects I have attended a few classes. For class 11th, I have started the discussion of cell chapter, and for class 12th, we are discussing about immunity, another important topic of human health and disease. So you can join the classes by using this code Sourav B Live. And also, if you are taking the plus subscription, you can use the code to get a 10% discount. All right, let's move and get started with the topics. So yes, today's class will start with a very notorious, very harmful disease caused by the pathogen known as Plasmodium. All right, malaria. So malaria is caused by Plasmodium, which is actually a protozoan. I hope that you know what a protozoan is. Just to give you an idea, we have 5 kingdoms, right? First is Monera. Second one was Protista, right? Third was fungi. Fourth was plant, and fifth was animals. Now, inside the Protista, we have 3 major types of organisms. First are the photosynthetic organisms, those who perform photosynthesis. In this segment, we had 3 other organisms. Let's not talk about that. After that, we had slime molds. Yeah, those basically creepy creatures that live on tree trunks. And after that, we had protozoans, right? Protozoans. So we have 2 types of protozoans that we will talk about in today's class. First are plasmodiums that cause malaria, and after that we will talk about amoeba, to be precise, Entamoeba histolytica. So it is a type of organism that causes certain diseases related to our intestines. So we will talk about these 2 protozoans. So yes, let us start the discussion. You want me to talk in Hindi? Unfortunately, Mayank, the class is supposed to be in English. I am going to take the classes in English, but I will keep the language very simple, right? If you have any problem regarding anything, you can ask me and I will explain to you in Hindi, but the main language is going to be English. So yes, because it is for ISC board and the more stress is paid on the language of English. But don't worry, all these terms are very simple. If you face any doubt, you can ask me in Hindi. All right, so what actually happens in malaria? Let us get a basic idea. First, let us see that different species of Plasmodium. So we have different species of Plasmodium. For example, P. vivax. P means Plasmodium. So we have Plasmodium vivax, a type of Plasmodium. We have Plasmodium malaria, right? And we have Plasmodium falciparum, and they are responsible for different types of malaria. Again, you don't have to remember what species cause what type of malaria. Some books have that table, but it is completely unnecessary. All you need to remember is this line, that we have malignant malaria. It is the most dangerous, the most harmful type of malaria that we can suffer from. So this malignant malaria is caused by Plasmodium falciparum, and it is the most serious one and can be fatal, right? What do we mean by this term fatal? Something that can kill, right? So it can kill you. If you suffer from this disease and you do not pay attention to it or treat it at time, it will kill you, right? So this is malignant malaria. Malignant in general, it is a term which is used for very harmful, right? So malignant are very harmful. We have 2 types of cancers as well. We have benign cancer and malignant cancer, right? So this malignant cancer is the harmful one, and in this case malignant malaria is the harmful one. Here I have an image to help you visualize how these organisms look like. They just look like tiny balls. Basically they are microscopic, and that is how they look like under the microscope, these plasmodiums, right? So we have different types of plasmodiums, different types of malaria, but the most dangerous one is malignant malaria. Now let us talk about the life cycle of Plasmodium, how it causes diseases in our body. Let's see. Yes. All right. So this is the whole life cycle of malaria, how it enters our body with the help of this helper basically, this mosquito, and this particular mosquito that carries this plasmodium is a female one, right? So it is female Anopheles. Again, it is a type of mosquito, female Anopheles mosquito. So let us see how this cycle actually works, how it enters our body, and why do this malaria contain this particular plasmodium. Let's see. So when the mosquito bites another human, basically if the mosquito is biting us, the sporozoites are injected with the bite. Now, what are these sporozoites? Let me tell you. So sporozoites, this is a stage of plasmodium which enters our body, and something that enters our body is infecting us. The word infection means entering of substance in our body, right? So this is the form of plasmodium that enters our body, and that is why it is infective form or stage. We can say infective stage of plasmodium. So it is nothing but plasmodium. It is a special stage of plasmodium. Stage of plasmodium. First thing, this is something that you should keep in mind, that sporozoid is the infective or infectious stage of plasmodium. Now, it enters our body when this female Anopheles bites us. Now, once they bite us, these sporozoids first they enter our blood, and through the blood they go into the liver. So their first target is the liver. This is how it looks like. So it says that parasite. So parasite is an organism that lives on our body. So this parasite, which is in the form of sporozoids, it reaches the liver through the blood. So through the blood it enters the liver, and inside the liver it reproduces. It increases its count. How? By reproducing asexually. So by the means of asexual reproduction, it increases in number in the liver cells. As it is shown here, that a few cells they enter the liver cells, a few sporozoids they enter the liver cell, they divide, and then they burst out of the liver cell, and then they enter the blood cells again. So first they travel into the liver through the blood. Once they reproduce in the liver, they go back in the red blood cells, mainly the red blood cells. So the parasite reproduces asexually in liver cells, bursting the cell and releasing into the blood. So now it enters into the blood. Now inside these blood cells it reproduces again, right? So parasites reproduce asexually in the red blood cells, bursting the red blood cells. So they burst the red blood cells as well, and causing cycles of fever and other symptoms, right? So released parasites infect new red blood cells. So it creates a cycle. They infect some red blood cells, divide, burst the red blood cells, and spread to other red blood cells. So that is how they are infecting all the cells of the blood. Now, why do they cause this fever when they burst the cell? Because they secrete a certain toxic substance which is known as hemozoin. Hemozoin. It is a certain toxic substance, right? We can also write it hemozoin. Different languages, different spellings. So you should keep that in mind. It is just the same. So hemozoin is a toxic substance, right? It is a toxin released by plasmodium, and this causes fever. So this here, it causes fever. It causes fever. All right. Now, so this cycle gets repeated again and again, and we suffer from fever. Now, when these sporozoids, which is the stage of plasmodium, it grows, it matures, it forms male and female parts, male and female gametes or gametocytes. As it says that now sexual stages, which are the gametocytes, they develop in the red blood cells. Now the thing is, these sexual forms, they cannot perform sexual reproduction in the human body. They can only perform asexual reproduction in us. So now they have to go back in the malaria. And how does it happen? It happens when the malaria bites us. So when this female Anopheles mosquito, sorry, when the mosquito bites us, this plasmodium, right, again enters in the mosquito. But the question is, why does this mosquito bites us? Why does it need to suck our blood? So the answer to that is that they suck our blood because these mosquito, they require the nutrients which are present in the blood. So mosquitoes, basically the female mosquitoes, right, female appear something like this. So female mosquitoes, they need our blood for nutrients, our blood for nutrients. And why does it need these nutrients? For the nourishment of their eggs, for the nourishment of their eggs. So in order to feed their eggs, to nourish their eggs, the female Anopheles, they bite us for our blood, nourishment of eggs. Now you can imagine why we specifically write the female Anopheles. Why not the male Anopheles bite us? Because they do not need our blood, they do not have the eggs, and they do not have to worry about the nourishment of the eggs. That is why it is the female Anopheles that bites us. Alright. I hope that I'm live. Alright. Now that you've understood why we have the female Anopheles mosquito and why it needs our blood, let us move on. So when it sucks the blood, these gametocytes, they enter in the mosquito. So female mosquito takes up the gametocytes with the blood meal. So it is intaking the blood. Now after that, these male and female parts, they fertilize, they fuse and perform sexual reproduction. And this leads to the formation of sporozoites again. So they fuse and then they develop in the sporozoites. So these sporozoites, they get developed in their stomach. Now after they get developed in the stomach, they cross the wall of stomach and enter in the salivary glands where they get stored. So these sporozoites, which can now enter our body, they get stored in the salivary glands of the mosquito. So the mature infective stages of sporozoites, they escape from gut, from the stomach, and they migrate into the mosquito salivary glands where they get stored. And yes, when the mosquito, it bites at us again, this saliva is secreted into our blood, and through that the plasmodium, the infective stage of plasmodium, which are sporozoites, they enter in our body. So this is how the whole life cycle of plasmodium operates. And you can see that it has two hosts, two organisms in which it lives. It first lives in the humans and it also lives in the mosquitoes. So it has two hosts. And if the organism has two hosts, we call it digenetic. So yes, plasmodium is digenetic. Digenetic, which means it has two hosts. Two hosts. So I hope that all this is clear to you. Now let us summarize all this with the points. Let us go through all the points quickly. So the first point says that plasmodium enters the human body as sporozoites, which are infectious form, right? Through the bite of infected female Anopheles mosquito. So again, the female Anopheles is itself infected because it contains those sporozoites in its salivary gland. That is why it is infected female Anopheles mosquito. So that is how they enter us. Now, the parasites initially multiply within the liver cells and then attack the red blood cells, resulting in their rupture. So they basically burst the red blood cells when they grow inside them. Alright. Now, the rupture of RBCs is associated with a toxic substance which is known as hemozoin. We have discussed hemozoin as well. So this toxic substance is responsible for causing chills and fevers. As it says here, it is responsible for the chill and high fever recurring every 3 to 4 days. So see, there is a cycle. Every 3 to 4 days it secretes hemozoin, which causes chills and fever in the infected person. So this is how malaria represents itself. The harmful effects of malaria, they represent itself. So basically they are killing our liver cells, they are killing our blood cells, and that is why we are experiencing these high fevers every 3 to 4 days. All right, let's move on. Now, when a female Anopheles mosquito bites an infected person, right, these parasites enter the mosquito's body and undergo further development. What is this further development? Sexual reproduction, right? They undergo sexual reproduction in the mosquito's body, and inside our body they undergo asexual reproduction. Now, the parasites multiply within them to form sporozoites. So they multiply and they mature to the sporozoites that are stored in their salivary glands. Again, this is something we have discussed. Now, when these mosquitoes bite a human, again the sporozoites are introduced into her body, thereby initiating the events which are mentioned. So yes, the infected mosquito bites the normal person, he gets infected. Now, when a normal mosquito bites infected person, the mosquito gets infected, and this is how they transfer diseases from one individual to other individual. So that is how this disease-causing plasmodium spreads, right, from one human being to other human being. All right, that is why malaria is communicable. It is infectious, not directly but indirectly. So we have two terms for communicable diseases. Communicable diseases are also known as infectious diseases. Infectious diseases, right? Now these infectious diseases, these are the diseases which can spread from the infected person to a normal person, but it can be of two types. First are the contagious diseases. Contagious diseases. Others are non-contagious diseases. Non-contagious. Now let us understand these two terms. Again, contagious does not mean communicable. Communicable has two types. One is contagious, other one is non-contagious. So what is the difference between them? The difference is pretty simple. That the contagious ones, let me pick white. Okay, so the contagious diseases, they spread through direct contact, right? Spread directly, spread by direct contact. Direct contact. But the non-contagious diseases, they spread indirectly. Spread indirectly. Now, we can easily understand what direct contact is. If the person is infected and if you are close to that person, or if you are using the items that he or she is using, you might get infected. The non-contagious can be malaria. See, malaria cannot spread from the direct contact of the infected person. It is infected with the agent, right? It can be a vector or it can be a non-living thing, right? So for non-contagious diseases, they spread indirectly, and the example can be malaria. So malaria is a great example, and the example of contagious disease can be common cold, right? It can spread from direct contact. So I hope that these two types of infectious diseases are clear. Let's move on. Now let's talk about all the observations that we make. So it is interesting to note that malarial parasites requires two hosts, human and mosquitoes, to complete its life cycle. And again, the parasite that requires two hosts is known as digenetic. All right. And another thing says that the female Anopheles mosquito is a vector. And again, vector is something we have talked about. It is the disease transferring agent. An organism that carries pathogens is a vector. So it is a transmitting agent. So this is all that you need to know about malaria. Again, it was a disease caused by Plasmodium, which is a protozoan. Another protozoan disease is the amoebiasis. This is the second disease caused by protozoan that we need to know. So amoebiasis, also known as amoebic dysentery, is caused by the pathogen called Amoeba histolytica, which is a protozoan. Right? So let us see what happens in this amoebiasis. Again, it looks something like this. So this is Amoeba histolytica. Amoeba histolytica. It's IS. Histolytica. Alright, let's talk about it. So, it is basically a disease of gut. So, it spreads through contaminated food and water, and mainly this amoeba, Amoeba histolytica, it is spread with the help of houseflies. So, these are the key terms, key points. Amoebiasis basically. So, it is a protozoan parasite in the large intestine. So, the target organ is large intestine, not small intestine, but the large intestine. Target organ is large intestine of humans, which causes amoebiasis or amoebic dysentery. Now, when the target is large intestine, the main thing that you will observe are the changes in the feces, right? So all the excretory products, all the feces which the person excretes, they will have certain differences. They will get changed, and in this case, in the case of amoebiasis, the feces contains mucus and blood, right, which we will see in the symptoms. So yes, how it spreads basically? Houseflies, they act as mechanical carriers and serve to transmit the parasite from feces of infected person to food and food products, thereby contaminating them. So yes, we can say that this particular pathogen, it spreads by fecal-oral pathway. Again, fecal-oral pathway means that from some infected person's feces into the oral pathway of some non-infected person. So this pathway is known as fecal-oral pathway. It was also seen in typhoid. Typhoid is another disease of small intestine, and this is a disease of large intestine. So this is the difference between them. But yes, the mode of transfer is almost the same. It is spread through the contaminated food and water. So drinking water and food contaminated by fecal matter, they are the main source of infection. Alright, again the fecal-oral pathway. Let's move on. And these are the symptoms of amoebiasis. First is the constipation, which is reduced bowel movement, retention of basically feces in the stomach. Second can be abdominal pains and cramps, right? Basically we say akkadan bakkadan si ho rahi hai, right? So in the intestine, so we have abdominal pain and cramps. And finally, the most important symptom is this: the stools, the feces with and blood clots. So you will observe blood and mucus in the stools, the excretory matter. So these are all the symptoms of amoebiasis. So yes, these were the two protozoan diseases. Now let's move on, and now we will talk about helminthic diseases. And the first one is Ascariasis. Ascariasis is a helminthic disease which is caused by the pathogen Ascaris lumbricoides, which is a helminth, aschelminth, or nematode. All these are same things. So it is a helminth, right? So this is how they look like. These are long thread-like or noodle-like organisms, and you can see that the male and female, they are different. The male is smaller in size and female is larger in size. This is something which has been discussed in the chapter of Animal Kingdom in class 11th, and we use a certain term for this phenomenon. This phenomenon is known as sexual dimorphism. Sexual dimorphism is the phenomenon in which we have two physically different forms of the male and female, right? So male is different from female and that is why they show sexual dimorphism. Di means two, morph means body. So the different genders, they have different bodies, right? All right, let's talk about what happens in Ascaris. Ascaris, an intestinal parasite, it causes Ascariasis. So as intestine, here is the target organ. It is the target organ. Now, the eggs of the parasite are excreted along the feces of the infected person. So if the person is infected, it will contain the eggs which are released by these Ascaris lumbricoids. So their eggs, they move in the feces and they contaminate the soil, water and plants. So basically they will end up contaminating our food. Healthy person acquires this infection through contaminated water, vegetable and fruits. Again, this pathway is also the feco-oral pathway. Feco-oral pathway. So I hope this is clear to you as well. So again, contaminated food and water spreads Ascaris lumbricoids. Now let's see what can be the symptoms of Ascariasis. So the main symptom is going to be this blockage of small intestine. So these noodle-like organisms, they increase so much in the number that they block the cross section of intestine. So you can imagine if this is the intestine, right, and it has to pass food, it will contain these organisms like these, right? So you will see all these noodle-like organisms which have blocked the intestine completely, right? You might have seen some operation videos where they take out these noodles out of the intestines. These are not noodles, these are these Ascaris lumbricoids which have blocked the intestine. So yes, surgery is needed if the cases become severe. So let us see all the other symptoms. First is internal bleeding. So they can rupture the blood vessels and it can lead to internal bleeding. Second is muscular pain, right? So your body will feel pain. Next up is fever. Increased body temperature will also be observed. Next is anemia. Anemia means decrease in blood cells, or you can say yes, decrease in hemoglobin or blood cells. So decrease in blood cells, basically RBCs. If the count of RBCs drops down, it means that the person is suffering from anemia. He will feel weak, he will feel chills, and all these symptoms will follow anemia, right? So all these things will be observed. Why is it happening? So basically intestine is blocked. Now it cannot digest or absorb the food properly, which will lead to muscular pain and anemia, because body requires all those materials that we get from food in order to make the blood cells and hemoglobin. It will not get an ample supply of all these substances, which will lead to anemia, right? And yes, this is the main symptom, which is blockage of intestinal path. Let's move on. So this is all about the Ascariasis. The second disease caused by helminths is Elephantiasis or Filariasis. This is an interesting one. So the word Elephantiasis, it is indicating elephant. Why? Because in this, the infected person gets legs like an elephant. Let me show you something like this. And even the image is scary, right? So it becomes like an elephant's foot, and even the groin region, it swells up. And this is because of this particular disease, Elephantiasis or Filariasis. And which organism causes it? The pathogen is Buceraria. Again, Buceraria is a helminth. So it is a helminth. It is a non-vertebrate animal, and the types of Buceraria which causes it are Buceraria bancrofti and Buceraria malai. So these are the two types of Buceraria that causes this particular disease, and they are also known as filarial worm, and hence The disease is also known as filariasis, and this is how they look like. So let us understand the basic features of this particular disease. So the first point says that they cause a slowly developing chronic inflammation of the organs. Again, first thing, it develops slowly and it is chronic. Chronic means long term, right? Long term. Long term inflammation. Inflammation means swelling up mainly. So it causes chronic inflammation, mainly swelling, as we just saw in the diagram. Swelling of the organs in which they live for many years. So see, this particular pathogen can enter in your body and you would not notice for a very long time. So they can live in our body for a lot of years without even harming us, right? So where do they live basically? They live in the lymphatic vessels, right? So we have two types of vessels, blood vessels and lymphatic vessels, right? So these lymphatic vessels mainly of lower limbs, which are our feet. So they live in the lymphatic vessels of the lower limbs, and once they start showing these symptoms, they lead to the disease known as elephantiasis and filariasis, right? So this is the whole idea of elephantiasis. Now, again, the genital organs are also affected, right? So the groin region is also affected, resulting in gross deformities. The whole shape, the structure of the groin region and legs, it gets completely deformed, right? The final point says that the pathogen are transmitted to a healthy person through a bite of female mosquito vectors. So again, this is also caused by a female mosquito, but this time it is not female Anopheles. It is another mosquito which we call female Culex. So this time we have female Culex mosquito. So yes, this is also caused by the bite of a mosquito, which is female Culex mosquito. It is the vector of all these Eukaryotic pathogens, right? So it is caused by the bite of female Culex mosquito. So I hope this is clear to you. This is everything about elephantiasis. All right, let's move on. This is the image of the person affected by the disease. All right, let's move on. And now we have to talk about fungal disease, and the only fungal disease that we will discuss, which is in the syllabus, are the ringworms. So this is a fungal disease. Fungal disease. And as you can see in the image, this is how a ringworm looks like. It is a ring, and this region is infected by fungi. So many fungi cause this, and they mainly belong to the genera of Microsporum, Trichophyton and Epidermophyton. So you can remember it by MET, M-E-T, right? Microsporum, Epidermophyton and Trichophyton. Microsporum, Epidermophyton and Trichophyton. So this is how you can remember all these three genera of the fungi that cause ringworms. So let us see basic features of this particular disease. So the symptoms are appearance of dry scaly lesions. Lesions are these regions, as you can see, on various parts of the body, and they can be on skin, nails and the scalp, right? So the scalp of your head, which bears your hair. So we can observe dry and scaly lesions on our skin, nails and scalp, right? And these are the main symptoms of the disease. These are the symptoms. Now these lesions, they are accompanied by intense itching. So you will feel very itchy, right? you will experience the khujli caused by this ringworm. Now, heat and moisture help these fungi to grow. So it is a common feature of fungi that they love high temperature and high moisture to grow. So heat and moisture can help these fungi to grow, and that is why ringworm is mainly caused in the regions where there is a lot of heat. Axial regions of the body, in the groin regions, in the toes, in between the toes of the body. These are the regions which are highly vulnerable to the attack of these fungi because they can grow very easily in these regions, right? Which makes them thrive in the skin fold. So wherever the skin is folded, they can grow very easily, such as those in the groin, in the genital region, between the toes, and in the axial regions, right, in the armpits. So these are all the regions which can get easily affected by these fungi. Now, ringworms are generally acquired from soil or by using towels, cloths, or even combs of infected individuals. So yes, this is a disease which can uh, which can get transmitted from the infected person to a healthy person if we use their items, if we use their towels or anything that they use. That particular thing can have fungi on it, and if we use it ourselves, that fungi can enter our body and infect us, right? So these are all the things that you need to know about the ringworms. So I hope it is clear to you. Okay, let's move on. So these are all the diseases that we need to know. So let us quickly summarize what we have talked about in the diseases. So when we started with the discussion of diseases, right, we had two types. What were the two types? First were the genetic diseases or the congenital diseases. Let me just write it. Genetic diseases. And the other one was acquired diseases. Acquired diseases, something which we do not have since birth, something which we acquire later on in life. So we have acquired diseases. Now, acquired diseases can be of two types. First can be infectious or communicable. Infectious, or the second one is non-infectious or non-communicable. So infectious are the diseases which can spread from the infected individual to a healthy individual. And these infectious diseases are all that we have talked about. So in these infectious diseases, we have talked about the 5 major diseases based on the pathogens that cause them. So we talked about bacterial diseases, we talked about viral diseases, we talked about protozoan diseases, helminthic diseases, and finally fungal diseases, right? So these are all the diseases that we need to know about. And in bacterial diseases, we talked about typhoid and we talked about pneumonia. In viral diseases, we talked about common cold. In protozoan diseases, we have talked today about malaria and we have talked about amoebiasis. After that, in the helminthic diseases, we have talked about Escheriasis, those noodle-like organisms that live in the intestine, and Elephantiasis, where the legs, they swell up, right, and they look like elephants' eggs. And finally, we have talked about fungal diseases, which was the ringworm. So I hope all these are clear to you. So this is the whole map of all the diseases. Now let's move on and talk about how we can control these infectious diseases, how we can prevent these diseases to spread. So what can be the control measures? So we have 5 steps basically. Let us talk about them one by one. So if they can directly ask you the question that how can we control the spread of infectious diseases? You can simply write all these points and you will get full marks. So some of the preventive measures that can be taken are as follows. So the first point says that for personal hygiene, keeping the body clean, consumption of clean drinking water, food, vegetables, fruits, etc. So basically, first point is very simple. Keep everything that you eat or you use neat and clean and hygienic, basically, right? Maintain a good hygiene with all the things, especially with the food. All right. So this is the first one, keeping a good personal hygiene. Keep yourself well, right? Well cleaned up regularly, and diseases won't be near you. Mostly diseases are caused by this first term because people they do not maintain a good hygiene. So yes, maintain a good hygiene and eat food which is clean, right? To prevent infections from contaminated food. See, we have talked about three diseases which are caused by contaminated food and water. We have talked about typhoid, we have talked about amoebiasis, we have talked about ascariasis. All these are caused due to lack of hygiene, right? So this is something you should keep in mind. After that, we have the public hygiene. Yes, in the public places, hygiene is very important. So proper disposal of waste and excreta, periodic cleaning and disinfection of water reservoirs, all the lakes and ponds, basically, all the pools, cesspools, and tanks, and observing standard practicing for hygiene in public catering. So yes, all the public places should be maintained, well maintained, and their hygiene should be maintained properly. And yes, it is our duty to not throw the garbage on the roadside, right? So we cannot blame the authorities for the bad public hygiene. It is the responsibility of the public to be responsible. So yes, I hope that you will be responsible and you will take care of your society as well as your home, right? So keeping well hygiene is a very important factor in preventing these infectious diseases. What can be the other points which affect, basically which we can use to prevent all these infectious diseases? So for vector-borne diseases such as malaria, eradication of vectors and destroying their breeding sites is important. So see, malaria is caused by plasmodium, but what carries the plasmodium? The mosquitoes. So if we kill all the mosquitoes, if we do not allow the mosquitoes to grow, malaria will not grow, right? So eradication means removal of the vectors. So yes, if you remove the vector, the threat of the disease will disappear, right? So we can destroy their breeding sites. These are the sites where they reproduce, where they grow in numbers. So I hope that you all know that the breeding sites of mosquito are open water bodies. As you can see, that example is using mosquito nets. First of all, you can prevent the contact of mosquitoes with you. So you can use mosquito nets and mosquito repellents like all outs and all those sprays. Second point says avoiding stagnation of water. What does stagnation means? Basically, when the water is not moving and it is static for a longer period of time, we call it stagnant water. And this process of water not moving anywhere is known as stagnation of water. So yes, we can prevent all this stagnation of water by covering the water bodies or basically removing the water if it is somewhere which is not required, right? So we can avoid stagnation of water because this is the place where all these mosquito breed and increase their number. Regular cleaning of coolers. This is something always talked about because coolers they work by storing water in them, and if we do not clean the coolers regularly, these coolers they will contain all these eggs and larvae of these mosquito which will grow and spread malaria, right? So introducing, this is a great point, we can introduce fishes like gambusia. Fishes like gambusia. So gambusia is a fish which eats on the larva of mosquito as it says here. So we can introduce gambusia, which is a fish in ponds that feed on mosquito larva. So it eats the mosquito larva, which is great. Now it is eat and kill mosquito larvae and the threat of malaria will be eliminated. We can also spray insecticides in the ditches. So all the ditches which contain all these water bodies, so they have stagnant water, we can spray insecticides, all these harmful chemicals which will not allow the malaria larva to grow on them. Also, drainage area and swamps can also be treated by insecticides. So yes, all these measures, they can prevent the breeding of the vector. All right, and this will prevent the spread of disease. So this was the third point. All right, now the fourth point says that for airborne diseases, the diseases which spread through air, avoid contact with infected person or their belongings. Right, so you should avoid contact. You should stay away from the person who is infected by diseases. For example, it can be diseases like common cold, it can be pneumonia, and it can be all the diseases which spread from one person to another person by direct contact. So yes, stay away from the infected person if you want to avoid infection. All right, so this is a very easy point to understand. And finally, the point that the whole world is working on at the moment, which is vaccination and immunization. So see, you can prevent the attack of pathogen, but if the pathogen still enters in your body should be able to fight it. Your body should be capable enough. You should have the sufficient immunity in your body to kill those disease causing pathogens. In that, vaccination and immunization helps. So vaccination and immunization, these programs for disease should be strictly followed, right? So they help in developing immunity. So they help us to develop our immunity, which allows us to fight against all these disease causing pathogens and prevent their harmful effects, right? So these are all the points that you can perform, all the actions that you can take to control all these infectious diseases. So with that, today's discussion of common diseases is done, right? So we have learned about all the things, all the initial things of the chapter of human health and disease. We have talked about what is health, what affects the health, what is a disease, what are the types of disease. We have talked about pathogens, vectors, we have talked about bacterial diseases, viral diseases, protozoan diseases, helminthic diseases, and fungal diseases. After that, we have talked about the control measures. How can we control these diseases? So this is the first segment of the chapter. The whole chapter contains 5 parts. If I tell you, the chapter has 5 parts. 2, 3, 4 and 5. So the first part is related to health and disease, health and common disease, which we have covered on the 2 classes of YouTube, common disease. Now the second part is immunity, and immunity is something that we are discussing on the special classes on the Unacademy app. So yes, if you want to understand immunity, you can join the special classes and you can use the code of Sourav B Live. So this is the code that you can use to get the advantages of special classes for free. So this is the code. The third segment is going to be the 2 major diseases, which are AIDS and cancer. Again, I'm starting the discussion of AIDS and cancer in the special classes very soon. After that, we have AIDS and cancer. After that, we have drugs, right? So we will talk about drugs, and finally we have alcohol abuse. So these are all the parts which will be discussed in the chapter, right? So yes, we have covered the first part, and yes, let us now quickly talk about all the features that you can use with the Unacademy. So first thing that you should do is follow the channels, the Telegram channel, to get all the updates, to be updated, to get all the updates. I cannot spell today. To get all the updates, right, join the channel, and the link is in the description, right? So first thing you should do is join the channel. Second thing, subscribe the YouTube channel to get more videos. So yes, you will get videos for 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, and you will get classes for ISC and ICSE board, right? So if you have a cousin or a friend that requires all these classes, tell them about this channel. And yes, let's reach the target of 1,000 subscribers. And yes, press the bell icon to not miss any update. Yes, so press it. It looks something like this, as far as I can remember. And yes, as you can see, these are all the upcoming classes. We have immunity, as I have talked about. We have acquired immunity and AIDS. So all these topics will be covered. So I hope to see you on those classes. Now, how these special classes work. So see, you can watch the classes for free, and you can use the live chat and emojis features. Also, there are polls which you can join. So basically, I will ask you certain questions and you can answer them through polls. You can also ask questions using the question tab during the special classes. Now let's see how you can watch a special class. So the first thing you need to do is download it from the App Store or the Play Store that you have. So install it. Next, open the app and get started. Enter your phone number, right? Just the basic procedure of starting any app. Sign up with your email ID to get all the notifications. All right. Then you can fill all the details, that in which class you are studying for which course or for which board you are studying for, right? So you can select your class and your board. You can select the language that you prefer. It can be English, Hindi, or English, right? A mixture of both these languages. So yes, so what you have to do is go to the description of this video and you can click on the link of the special classes that I have, right? And you can click on notify me so that you can get the notification, and you can use the code to unlock all these special classes for free. And what was the code? SOURAVBLIV. So this is the code that you can use to get all the advantages of a special class for free. So yes, if we recap, we have already recapped, right? So this is done. We have recapped everything. Again, this is the link that you can use. So yes, install the app, download the app, use all the features. Most of them are free, and if you want the extra edge, you can always get the plus subscription as well. Let me give an idea that we are starting a crash course of biology, chemistry, and all the subjects for a quick revision of all the topics, right? So crash course is starting from 3rd and 4th Jan, right? 3rd and 4th Jan. So yes, you can join all these classes of the crash course if you join the plus course, and you can use my code to get a 10% discount, and you can use this code. All right, so yes, this is it for today, and I take a leave. I hope you will do all the studies, and I will see you in the next class.